Welcome everybody. This is our webinar all about the FDN Medical Director Program and how we make it so that you can access testing regardless of where you live in the world. So for those of you who are joining us again, please let us know you're coming back and tell us where you're joining us from. We'd love to hear where you're joining us from today before we get started. I am in sunny but cold and snowy Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. Where do we have everybody else joining us from?
Yeah, let us know where you're tuning in from and also what you do if you don't mind. Sorry to add the extra thing in last second, but I'd love to know what you guys do if you do anything in the health space. And if you don't, no problem. I also see Kathleen said coming back. Kathleen, we just met, have you been on any other events with us this November? We've been doing a series of events with different things. So let us know where you're tuning in from and what you do.
Oh, Maria, Cornwall, Ottawa, Ontario. I'm from Ottawa. Very familiar with Cornwall. Welcome. Got nutrition coach, Las Vegas, Northern Wisconsin, Washington, Jersey, San Francisco. We have people all over the place. Nurse educator, welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Awesome. As you guys can tell, if you can't, well, hopefully you can tell, I'm a little out of sorts today. I'm traveling myself. So I actually live in Wilmington, North Carolina now, and I'm back home in Bucks County, Pennsylvania visiting. So anytime I see Jersey, I'm only 5 minutes from the border here. I always wonder where a person's at in Jersey. Excited to talk to you guys today. We got Charlotte, North Carolina. That's close to my new home.
Awesome. Well, this is going to be a pretty interactive call that we're doing today because I have a very, very short presentation. And then it's really going to be your opportunity to ask us questions about lab testing, our medical director program, and how that works, because it's a big question that a lot of people have. And it can feel a little bit confusing. And that's why we do this, so we can get all of your questions answered as it relates to the lab testing aspect of things. So I think what I'll do is I'll share my screen, I'll do my little presentation, and then you guys can start asking your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll just roll it from there.
Yes, and just so you guys know, I see some of your names on here from the other day. So this is the opportunity to ask about, once we're done the mini presentation, international shipping. Some of you guys were asking about. Some were asking, well, can I do labs in Jersey? I heard there was issues labs in Jersey. We have positive answers for all of those things. So definitely get those asked in the chat, even when we're presenting or when Brandy's presenting. I'm sorry, I'll prioritize those. But yeah, we want this to be more interactive for you so that you understand exactly how this works. Brandy, I know you're probably like me with this. When we first got introduced to this concept, it's so darn cool that you almost wonder, wait, can you legally do this? This is something that health coaches can do. And the answer is yes, you absolutely have an ability and right to do this. So we'll explain that as we go along here. I can't wait to dive in.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen. You can give me a thumbs up when you can see the MDP page. That would be great. Awesome. All right. So what is the FDN Medical Director Program? So we are actually the first of its kind. We put this together in the early days of FDN back in 2008 was actually the first year that Reed taught this course, but not long afterwards, he actually developed this program where it gave the ability for non-licensed practitioners to access the functional testing that we teach in the course. And so for the most part, with a lot of these labs, you do need to have a license to open an account. And so if we are not licensed, how do we access this testing? And how we did that is Reed, because he did so many labs on clients and patients in practice, he became friends with several different doctors, two of which actually went on to take the FDN program and loved what he did so much and wanted to be able to support the mission of FDN, that they decided to become our medical directors, where we are able to open lab testing accounts with their medical license. And the reason they allowed us to do this is because they trusted in how Reed taught, and they understand that what we teach in the FDN program is that we are not doctors. We are not diagnosing or treating anything specifically. So the purpose of the lab testing is not to make a diagnosis. Rather, the purpose of the testing is to gather information about the client that's sitting us in front of us. And oftentimes it's information that we may not be aware of by just doing an intake form or just doing symptoms. So if you've been joining us throughout this series, you've heard a lot from Elizabeth and Reed, and they've talked about this concept of metabolic chaos. And that's the purpose of the testing. We're trying to identify those hidden stressors that are leading to metabolic chaos. And so for the most part, a lot of the testing that we use would be considered research use only. And the reason they're called that is because there isn't one marker on there that if it's high or low can make a diagnosis. That's not what we want to do. That's not what we're in the business of doing. Instead, we're looking at the testing and saying, okay, this testing is looking at this specific system. Is there dysfunction? Yes or no? Okay, there's dysfunction. Now we want to turn around and make lifestyle recommendations that can make improvements in that particular area. And so that's why we're able to leverage this, is because we are not diagnosing or treating. We're not putting anything through insurance. So we're not providing ICD-10 codes for any of our clients. They're paying out of pocket for these tests. So we are essentially facilitating the ability for our clients to access this functional lab testing so that they can test themselves. We provide the educational interpretation, and then we provide recommendations. So we have been doing this, like I said, for over 10 years. We were the first of its kind. And because we've been doing this for so long and we are an international company, we've worked really, really hard to make lab partnerships with labs overseas so that we can service places like Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Europe, Africa, South America. We can service all of these areas because we've built these partnerships. Now you can see here on the page that we are in partnership with Avexia Diagnostics. This is a very recent development that happened in 2024. We made the decision to partner with Avexia because we have a growing number of practitioners who are ordering more and more testing, and they were coming to us asking us for the best pricing possible. And because Avexia is in the business of lab testing, that's all they do, they have a little bit more reach and pull where they can get us better pricing. And so if you are a practitioner with FDN, you have the ability to open an account with Avexia Diagnostics to get the best pricing on testing for yourself and for your clients. The only caveat that I'll put here with Avexia is that Avexia only services North America. They do not support New York, New Jersey, or Rhode Island. That's where our FDN Medical Director program comes in. Remember, I said we were the first of its kind before the Avexias and some of the other dispensaries that I will not name here came into business and we're doing this type of work. We were the first. And so we established really great relationships with our lab partners, and we can support you if you are a practitioner in New York, New Jersey, or Rhode Island, or you have clients in those states, because we have found alternative tests that are similar to what we teach in the course that can be done in those states. So regardless of where you live, we can support you. And then the same is true if you live internationally. So although Avexia does not ship to Europe, we can absolutely support you with our partners by sending things to Europe or Australia or New Zealand or wherever you or your client are. So that is the overview of our medical director program. Now, a lot of questions are going to come up and say, what is the cost? So as a graduate of the FDN program, you automatically get access to the medical director program. You're automatically in there because you've graduated from our course. If you want to order a test through us, so through our medical director program, there is a fee. It's a $65 fee, but that fee covers our administration team taking care of everything for you. So they place the order, they deal with the lab, they take care of shipping. Any issues that come up, they take care of that for you. And that also includes a 30-minute session with one of our FDN clinical advisors. And Evan, I think this question came up when we did the course tour a couple weeks ago. Who are our clinical advisors? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to that page so I can show
nice.
you what that looks like.
Well, Brandy's doing that,
And
by the way, guys. Yeah, we see all the questions. So if you're just tuning in, drop them below. It's a short presentation today, and we're actually going to do more of a Q&A style. So we're going to go in order that they're listed.
Yep. So this is our clinical advisor page. This is where once you get a link to book your session, you can come on here and you can pick any of our clinical advisors. So I'm just going to go over them briefly just to kind of introduce you to who they are. We've never actually done this in an MDP session, but I think it's important for you guys to know. So Brandon Mole, he is been in FDN longer than I have. I believe he graduated in 2013. He's actually one of the first mentors who mentored people through the course. He is a very successful FDN practitioner. He's done a lot of training with many of the labs that we work with. And I would say, hands down, if there's anybody that's going to give you the true FDN interpretation and like by the book FDN, it's going to be Brandon. He's very, very, I mean, he's amazing. I love booking sessions with Brandon. So Brandon is one of them. We've got Whitney Morgan. She's a licensed acupuncturist, but again, she's also an FDN graduate. She's been a graduate since 2014. She's gone on to take several other courses to expand upon her knowledge. She's extremely knowledgeable when it comes to gluten sensitivity and thyroid, and she's done a lot of extra training with the labs as well. So Whitney is amazing. We've got Dr. Jill Philo. She was actually the very first FDN clinical advisor and the very first FDN mentor. She worked with Reed very early on, and she actually took the course, one of the first cohorts back in 2008. She's worked with Reed for several years. She's amazingly smart, very, very well versed. And so Jill is amazing. We've got Paula Reed. She's also an FDN graduate. She did a lot of work in women's hormones prior to coming to FDN. So she's very knowledgeable from the hormonal perspective, and very well loved by our FDN community. And Paula and Whitney spend a lot of time in our graduate community supporting our graduates. So Paula is great. We've got Dustin McFarland. He is a FDN mentor, but he's also a clinical advisor. Dustin has a background in supplements, so he worked in supplements for several years. And he's actually very, very knowledgeable in all things mycotoxins and mold and organic acids, and he's a definitely go-to person for that. So Dustin is great. We've got Courtney Cowie. She is another amazing FDN graduate. She's also a nutritional therapy practitioner. And you can see here, she's taken several additional courses. All of our practitioners have done training with the labs, but she's taken other courses on SIBO, mold, many different types of training. We've got Shauna Gorley. She's an FDN. She's a Canadian, a fellow Canadian, and she's done a lot of work as well. Shauna's been in the space, I believe, since 2015. So she's been doing this for a really long time, and Shauna is extremely knowledgeable, really, really good when it comes to nutrigenomics and women's hormones. And then finally, we've got Antoinette. So Antoinette is also an FDN practitioner, but she is in Australia. So for those of you who are overseas and are looking for somebody with a perspective of maybe living Australia, New Zealand area, Antoinette is for you. And so this is one of the other things that I don't think we've talked enough about in the past is the benefit of our clinical advisors and how valuable they are to you. And this is something you don't get with any other program. Like if you go to the lab to get a clinical consult, you might get 15 minutes. And usually those consults, and I've experienced this myself, they're going to say, okay, give this for that or give this for that. And that's about it. They're not going to talk about lifestyle. They're not going to talk about diet. They're not going to talk to you about the dress principles. And all of our clinical advisors absolutely do that. And they're very passionate about what they do. So I really wanted to highlight them because I think it's really important for us to show that we've got a really great team of people that can support you from the clinical perspective. And that's a benefit of the medical director program. So the other thing I was going to show you here was we actually have increased the number and types of sessions that are available to you now. So we have got, and there's quite a bit here, we've got a 30-minute session. That's pretty standard. So that $65 fee I talked about earlier, that covers one 30-minute session with one of our clinical advisors. We have a 60-minute session. So if you have a couple of labs you want to go over with one of them because you want some help, you can book a 60-minute session. We have one dedicated specifically to blood chemistry because there's a lot of blood chemistry markers that you can put together. And so we had one specifically dedicated to that if you wanted support specifically on blood chemistry. We've recently added a 90-minute case review. This was by popular demand from our graduates, and this is where you can actually book a one-on-one session with one of our advisors to fully go over an entire case. And that's invaluable because for some of you, and I've had this question, I'm sure you've had it too, Evan, when you were working on the course enrollment team, they say, what if I get a client and I don't know what to do and they hit a roadblock? Like, what do I do? And our Facebook group is amazing on the graduate side, but sometimes you want that one-on-one support. And so that's why we added this session, this 90-minute case review. It's invaluable. I mean, you're going to get so much information in that session. And then we have two different ones. So a clarity session is a session specifically with Jill Philo to kind of get unstuck. And that happens. Sometimes you feel in a rut, sometimes you feel stuck. I keep attracting these clients and I keep running into the same thing. Jill is so good because she's been in this for so long that we have clarity sessions with her. And we also have strategy sessions. This could be clinical strategy, but it could also be a little bit of business strategy. So we've added a lot of these sessions that are available for you guys to purchase. And it gets you a lot of additional ongoing support through our medical director program. So I wanted to just show that to you, that we're constantly evolving and finding ways to support you through the medical director program, not just with the ability to order testing, but the ability to access a great team of advisors that are there to support you. So you feel confident that regardless of the client that sits in front of you, you have somebody you can talk to that can help you and get results with your clients. So that's my presentation part. I'm sure we've got a bunch of questions, and this is where we said at the beginning, this is going to be interactive because we know you guys are going to have a ton of questions. So I want to make sure that we cover those and we get all of your questions answered.
Yeah, let's buff them out. One thing I'll say right off the bat, so I just had to add this in. It's like I hope people really understood what you just laid out at the end there, that 90-minute review session. Are you guys going to need this often? Probably not. But the thing is, people worry. They go through the FDN course. We teach you the system. We wouldn't let you graduate if you were not ready to help people. That's what people need to understand. We would not let you graduate if you weren't ready to help people. But of course, we all have our own limiting beliefs and stuff. And sometimes we wonder, well, can I go do this? You can always know in the back of your head that when you hire someone, when you take that payment from them, you could just plan, if it makes you feel better, to budget in to do that 90-minute session so that you have this extra set of eyes on the case. And as you guys can probably tell, I'm relatively young still. I'm 29 right now. I went through this course at 21 years old. And so when I was first starting out, I didn't have any relevant college degrees in this. Like, I was not on paper an expert in this stuff. So I would actually use that as leverage. I would literally say to people, hey, I got a whole team behind me that helps me with these cases. So when you hire me, you actually also get that team. And because I went through the training, I have access to these people at a price that, I mean, quite frankly, it would be 10 times more if you had to go to them individually. So you don't only get me, you get all these other sets of eyes of these genius people. So just something to consider. You guys never have to worry when you're working with these clients. We'll teach you what's within the scope, so you'll always know who to take on. And if something comes up, we have your back 100%. All right.
And I want to echo on that because
sure.
I actually had a discovery call with a client of my own on Sunday, and that was a concern of hers. And it was a very difficult case. But right at the end of the call, I said to her, I said, look, I'm going to send you my pricing. And I didn't undercharge. This is not about charging, but I didn't undercharge. But I said to her, I said, I want you to know, and I want you to feel confident that I have access to a brain trust of very smart people at FDN. So regardless of what we find in your testing, I will be able to help you because I have access to these people and I can ask them questions.
Yes.
That made her feel very confident and she signed up with me. So,
nice.
And I've been doing this since 2014. And to your point, Evan, I don't know everything. I'm always going to them because they're so amazing and they're so smart and they can help.
Yes. All right, let's start buffing out some questions. So Charisse had asked, and this was in the beginning of your presentation, what happens when these doctors, I think she was referring to the doctors in the medical director program, what happens when they retire? What do we do then?
We actually have quite a few doctors that are very interested in being medical directors. We just don't need 10 of them. So if that tells you anything, I mean, that's something that is, I hope, makes you feel better. We have a lot of doctors who approach Reed or approach FDN because they love what they do, and they would happily step in to be a medical director. In fact, our very first medical director actually retired in 2016, and our two medical directors jumped right in. They were like, "Yep, pick me. I want to help this cause." So that's not an issue that I can foresee. We've got a lot of great people that love what we do, and some of them are actually on our advisory board, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a decent gig for them too. So there's always some
Yeah.
motivation as well. JB said, "Do clients ever ask if they can get them ordered, the labs ordered from their doctor, and get them covered by insurance instead?" Yes, this is something that comes up, and people will ask this. So we kind of teach you to explain these things in the same way that we kind of explained this today, but we went over it very briefly. The nature of some of these tests, it doesn't matter if it was the best doctor in the world running it. There's no insurance that's covering it because they're not being used as a literal tool for diagnosing something. Diagnostics and
Mhm.
diagnosing, two different words there. So there's no insurance that's covering it regardless. And I'm not saying that is always the funnest or the most fun answer to give your client, but at least they can know that it's not like they can go down the street and try to convince a doctor to do this and get it covered by insurance. Now, there is one foundational lab, just in transparency, that in theory could be covered by insurance. But Brandy, you have some interesting information on that because the client still ends up getting charged. So, can we talk about, God
Mhm.
forbid, you can find the doctor that's going to run one foundational lab that can be covered by insurance? Is that actually cheaper for the client?
No, because the insurance companies all can dictate their own pricing. So if you were to pay, we're just going to say, well, it's the GI map. We can say that. So when you order it through us, and you order it through Avexia, it's $311. Now, if you find a doctor who's willing to cover that through insurance, insurance companies will charge Diagnostic Solutions upwards of three, four, five times that price. And if you have a deductible, you may end up paying more. And it's crazy when I found this out. This is why we don't deal with insurance. It's crazy. You don't even want to do this because we don't want to get in that game, and you don't want to get in the game of diagnosis codes. Um, but I actually have had it happen more times than not because I used to run the medical director program where practitioners had their clients do that because they were trying to save them money. And what happened was is the doctor ordered it, couldn't figure out what diagnosis code to put on it to get it covered by insurance because they had no idea what the test was and they didn't know what to do with the markers. And that has happened. I've had that actually happen personally, where a client, she signed my terms of service agreement, which we share with all of our people who take the course, which outlines before making any changes, go talk to your practitioner. She took that very literally, went into her doctor, shared the test, and they had no idea what to do with the test. They're like, I don't know what this is. What, like, why I have no idea what to tell you. Like, I can't make a diagnosis from this. And so that's why we explain it to our clients, and they actually feel defeated. Like, there's been times I had a client that wouldn't ask for it, and a doctor laughed in her face and go, "Why are you asking for that? You don't need that." And she was very defeated. So um I hope that answers your question. I mean, we gave you a little bit of everything, but it's always better to set the expectation with your clients that this is an out-of-pocket expense. It is not covered by insurance. We do not want to be in the insurance game at all. Trust me, you don't want to be in the insurance game. It's not fun.
Yeah, you guys, if you will move over and move on now, but if you guys want any more information on this, just go and look up what is covered by a chiropractor and acupuncturist, at least in America, by insurance, and then what they're not allowed to do because of that. So, what Brandy meant when she says we don't want to play the insurance game is if somehow we get covered by that, now
Mhm.
you play by their rules. So that's what's
Mhm.
interesting. You could still be fully within your scope, acting legally, doing the right thing, but the second that you go under insurance, there's going to be very limited stuff that you can do. And everyone knows if you go to chiropractors and acupuncturists, the best ones are the ones that take cash
Mhm.
because they are not allowed to do certain things otherwise.
Yeah.
Um, all right.
And we don't even want to go there because we do not diagnose or treat. So as soon as you start to say I can find an ICD-10 code, you're opening up liability for yourself as a non-licensed person. And I saw a question in here with somebody, I think, who was a nurse, who said, well, I'm able to do that. And you can if you want, but again, the reason that a lot of licensed practitioners take our program and like this is they actually don't want that liability on their license. They'd prefer not to have their name as the licensed physician on the test results, so they can just do FDN work and stay within FDN scope of practice and not teeter on that gray line. Like, we absolutely do not want to do that. And We don't do that. We're very clear. Like, we're not pretending to be doctors here. So we're not making any diagnoses. And that's why we don't play that insurance game, because it's too risky and it's not worth it. We want to be able to continue to help people.
All right, next up is Lillian. One question: does the course teach you how to read the lab results, or does another third party read the lab results? Hopefully that makes sense. It absolutely does make sense. And I would say at the most core part of FDN teaches you a way of thinking. But outside of that way of thinking, I mean, what, 80% of the course, 70% of the course is just focused on how to use our foundational labs and
Mhm.
understand what you're looking at to make an intelligent protocol for your clients.
Right. And so when you say the word read, I mean, when you think of, okay, I'm going to read the test results, what you comes to mind is, okay, we're going to look at the marker, and is the marker in range or not in range? And then we're going to give you something to change that range. What we teach you in FDN is we do teach you what those ranges mean. We do teach you what the markers mean, but we actually teach you something called clinical correlation.
Mhm.
You're looking at all of the test results as a whole picture and go, what is this story telling me? You're not focusing on one marker, but you're looking at the whole story. And I think that's the value as FDN practitioners, is that that's how we're different. Even some alternative doctors or alternative practitioners, you will still find them looking at the test results and then giving you something to change one particular marker. And that's not how we look at things. We look at all of the markers as a whole. So yes, we teach you how to read it, but we're very different from our point of view.
Yeah, it gets really fun too because you learn how to use the labs in synergy.
Yep.
And so it again, this is why we test and don't guess. But once you've done this long enough, there's certain things like Brandy, you would get this right away. If I see someone in the exhaustive phase of HPA axis dysfunction, is it a shock to me when their secretory IgA is tanked on a GI map? Not necessarily. It's not going to be
No.
every time, but you start to connect these things. And the average, even a practitioner, let alone the average person, they have no idea that you'd be able to guess half the time what's going to show up on a stool test based on a
Mhm.
hormone test, right? But that's the things that we learn. It's very cool to use these things as this larger puzzle. So especially if you're into stuff like that, FDN's a very fun course. Jennifer had said, I got this one. This is very experienced with this. Can NJ clients go into PA? I live right on the border of PA. So obviously I said I was in PA most of my life, just until a few months ago, and I'm on the border to Jersey. Jennifer, I wouldn't start necessarily recommending that for people. I don't think it's a good look for clients, right? When you're having them hot borders. Can they do that legally? Yes. If they take the test in PA and send it out of PA, that's not legally wrong. It just, I found it was an odd look for me to be like, because I'd work with a lot of clients in Jersey.
Mhm.
It's not a great starting thing with them when their first session you're like, all right, hey, you're going to go across the border to do this. I don't prefer it. I don't think it's necessary. Can you do it legally if it's like a friend or family member? Yes, you can. Brandy, you might have more to say about that because the reality is it's not even necessary half the time, right?
Yeah, so let's actually dig into that. So, New York, New Jersey, for those of you who live there, you're obviously aware that there's a lot of weird restrictions, very restrictive. And there's three types of lab company relationships in those states. So the first one is the lab refuses to do any type of business at all with anybody in the state. So there's a lot of labs like that. The second type of lab is they're willing to ship their test kits to the state. So they can ship the test kit to your client, but they are not allowed to accept a sample that is postmark in that state. So that's the scenario that we were just talking about. They got the labs in New York or New Jersey, they collected their samples, they went into Pennsylvania, and they shipped it back, and the postmark is Pennsylvania. There are labs that allow that. What we've tried to do, and what we do is we actually work with the third type of lab, the lab that is able to ship and receive samples from New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island. So where it becomes an issue for those of you who are asking is blood work. Blood work is the most difficult one. We do not have a workaround for that, unfortunately. Like, they are going to have to go out of state to get blood work done. And that same is true if you wanted to do the LEAP MRT food sensitivity test. That is the one we teach in the course. If they live in those states, they would have to go out of the state to collect it. However, we have an alternative test that's a dry blood spot that can be done in those states. So if you have a client that's not capable of leaving, and you, we have an alternative, which is great.
Brandy, only just in case this was their first webinar this month, because we didn't specify this, just so you guys know, outside of that food sensitivity test, which Brandy just explained is very easily interchangeable with other things, blood work in and of itself is not part of our foundational
Yeah.
testing. So what we were saying is that some, practitioners would like to use blood tests, maybe they took an advanced course on it. We offer one of those. So sure, there's no reason that couldn't happen there. But if you go through FDN, it's not like that was required for you to do blood work in that way to be a successful FDN. So it's more of an add-on than anything. And yeah, you're right, because this is something most of the world doesn't even have the privilege of. The USA is one of the only places I know of where I can pay out of pocket. In most
Mhm.
states, it's like 46 of them. And I can go get blood work. And the average person doesn't even know that here, right? They have no idea that you can
Yeah.
go pay online right now and get blood work stuff. So it's not even that often that it comes up. A lot of clients have blood work when they come to you, which is good.
Yeah.
Okay,
I got the next one here from
sure.
Jamie. Which tests could be done on kids and how young? And do
Oh,
we get
nice.
training on that? And is there an advisor who specializes in kids? Yes, our advisors can give you advice on kids. You can do testing on kids. Now, we got this question on another webinar, Evan, and you answered it perfectly. We're not going to run a hormone test on kids because it doesn't make sense. It's not going to give us a lot of information. But we could definitely run food sensitivity test on kids. We can definitely do a stool test. We could definitely look at mucosal barrier. So those are things that we would say make sense for kids. I personally actually ran a food sensitivity test on my youngest son when he was 6. And I would suggest a finger poke. I think taking your kids to get a blood draw, depending on their age, they might be a little scared. If they don't care, you can do that. But you can absolutely do this on kids. And we do have clinical advisors and a lot of FDNs actually in our graduate community that work with kids. So definitely not an issue. Go ahead.
There's one from Elisa that I think is perfect for you because you're the NBHWC coach. So
Sure.
I'll read it out loud though if you want. Can you please
Okay.
speak to how an NBHWC coach can implement the FDN framework within scope? I know, Brandy, you're NBHWC, but from reaching out to the board, they imply this is not in scope because we are still evaluating labs and recommending supplements. Great question, and you have the perfect person for it.
Yep. And this is a fantastic question. So when I took the NBHWC, we had a program that we piloted a few years ago, taught by Dr. Lori Rose. She's one of our educators here at FDN. She teaches NBHWC courses, but she's also an FDN practitioner. And so the way that she described it is when you're working with clients, you are going to have to wear 2 hats. So according to NBHWC, it is outside of scope. You mentioned that in your question to use lab testing. So you are strictly doing health coaching. So you need to make clear when your clients, right now I'm wearing my health coaching hat and you're using your health coaching principles. When you put on your health consultant hat, that's what FDNs are. We are health consultants. So if you remember, if you are NBHWC certified, they have told you that coaching principles are that you are not the expert, but rather you are giving your clients tools to help them solve their own issues. They're not coming to you as the experts. FDN practitioners as health consultants are considered the experts, and that's where we can leverage the lab testing. So, and this is the same is true for licensed practitioners. So we'll get to that in just a second. But for the NBHWC question, you can do both. You just have to make sure you're clear with your client which hat you're wearing. You'll be wearing 2 different hats: health coach hat, health consultant hat. You can absolutely do it. And we have several FDNs who decided to take that. Do I think you need it to be successful at FDN? I do not. I just took it because the opportunity was there. I don't think you need it to be a successful practitioner. I
And
mentioned license. Oh, go ahead.
so I was just gonna. Well, it's kind of an elephant in the room with stuff. And by the way, we got guys. We like NBHWC. Brandy didn't do it because she's bored. We like it. I I don't want to speak for anyone here that already has that. Most people, though, like actually 90% that I ever talked to on the phone, Brandy, that were interested in it, I asked, well, why are you doing this? Right? Because again, no one does it because they're bored. They have a reason. 90% of the time, the reasoning was because they believed getting that, letters after their name would lead them to getting more clients. That is, it's not against MBHWC. This is true for almost any set of letters, including FDN. You're talking about a separate set of skills that we're trying to avoid, which is the business side. There is no set of letters in this functional space that I am aware of that is going to lead you to clients busting down your door. You will have to learn the business side, which is something we also offer at FDN. Other places
Mhm.
offer it as well. So the point is, never worry about that. If it's something that you're only doing just because you think the letters are going to do it, that's definitely a waste of your time. If it's because you have a serious passion for the coaching side of things, and that's 10% of people that I've talked to personally, yes,
Mhm.
great thing. So I just wanted to add that in because they don't realize sometimes that there's no magic letters right now that have
Yeah.
clients banging down your doors. I'd have them if it was the case.
Absolutely. And Pamela asked a similar question, so I wanted to address it just a little bit more.
Sure.
So another way you could do this is we teach you in FDN to sell package. We do not do one-off sessions. So if you look at the package framework, as FDN practitioners, we're going to be wearing our health consultant hats probably for the first month or so working with a client, because that's when we're doing intake forms, we're looking at labs, we're doing lab reviews, we're doing recommendations, we're doing supplements. After that's done and you're doing the ongoing coaching where you're doing check-ins, that's where you could actually say, I'm wearing my health coaching hat, because you really are coaching them. So those sessions after you've done interpretation, recommendations, and supplements, those technically could be your coaching, because you're coaching them on lifestyle change. You're helping them with their goals. You're coaching them through their struggles. So if you have that certification, that's another way that you can use it. And that's how I've used it. So
Mhm.
when I work with my clients, I have other modalities and I say, okay, this session I'm being your health coach, and this session I'm being your EFT practitioner. So you can get creative and still be in scope. So I hope that helps. And then I don't want to leave our licensed people because I teased it, but we get this question a lot. Well, how do I work with my license? So again, if you have a license, you have to be very clear with your patients which hat you're wearing. So if you're wearing your licensed practitioner hat, you tell them, right now I'm using my licensed practitioner hat. We're working under that scope. And if you are doing FDN, you are a health consultant and you're wearing that hat. And we have several practitioners that do this. They have two sides of their company. They may even say, I do this. Let's say you're a pharmacist. I was actually talking to one on the weekend. So right now I'm your pharmacist. And then I also have another offering, which is my health consulting offering. And so you can work with me from a health consulting perspective. And that's where you can do your FDN. And again, we're teaching you to stay within your scope. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. And we have a lot of licensed practitioners who take this course.
Awesome. What does the GI map cost through MDP? I don't even know that offhand. I'm thinking of the Avexia price.
Yes, the Avexia price is 311. You can't really order it through the medical director program unless you are outside of where Avexia can ship to. So for New York, it is, I believe it's 369 because we actually physically ship it to your client. Um, and overseas, it depends. Think it's about 370 in Europe, I think. I'd have to go back and look at the pricing, but we've got lots of ways that you can order it.
Awesome. Can't tell if this is a comment or question yet. Jamie said, okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. And funny, you just said something about there being a difference between the word, okay, so we're a little behind now, diagnosis and diagnostics, because my husband actually asked me, why is diagnosis in the FDN name if we don't diagnose? And I wasn't sure. Um, there is a whole private funny thing behind this because Reed, let's just say, as brilliant as he is, did not necessarily know FDN was ever going to be as big. So that full transparency, would he have maybe adjusted the name if he ever knew that we were going to have thousands of graduates and clients all over the world? I think he would say probably. So because even nutrition being in the name, right? People think, well, wait, am I going to learn 100 hours of nutrition? And it's like, no, you learn about nutrition, but not in that way. So we just go with FDN, right? And it sounds kind of cool. Like if you're at Thanksgiving this year with your family and you get to say, I am going to be a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. They have no idea what the heck you just said, but it sounds cool. So I like it. But yes, that's kind of the difference is you can use a diagnostic tool, but a diagnosis is, it could be a variety of things. It could be something that we measure objectively in Western medicine. It might be blood sugar issues, right? That could be type 2 diabetes diagnosis. It could be a cluster of symptoms, bipolar disorder. There's no, measurement that we're taking from your blood to do that, but we see this cluster of symptoms. We've labeled it with something. So yeah, we're not doing that here at all.
Yep. And there's no commission on the lab. So what we tell people is, I mean, there's a handful of practitioners that try to like upcharge labs, but the labs are expensive enough. So if you get a savings, we encourage you to pass that savings on to your clients. Where you do get a commission, and this was the second part of the question, is supplements. I mean,
Mhm.
as an FDN practitioner, you can open a full script account. You can get accounts directly with supplement companies. They're often going to offer you wholesale pricing. I mean, that's where you can definitely make a commission. We do not encourage you to do that on testing. It's already expensive enough. Just pass the savings on to your client.
Yeah, and don't sleep on full script because you're right about that. If you've been doing this for a while, what happens is and I'm sure none of you guys can relate to this if you're watching something like this. Have you ever bought a supplement you knew you didn't need, but you're just experimenting for fun, even if you're 8 years into doing this stuff? Yeah, I've been there. And so full script, you can you can do this sliding scale basically where you could offer your clients 10% off supplements. So they still got a deal, but you're getting a back end commission on some of that still. So we have FDN practitioners. I won't say names just to be appropriate, but we have FDN practitioners where there are, I mean, legitimate salary level incomes coming in every month from recurring supplements because they've been doing this for, 7, 8, 9 years. And
Mhm.
there's someone still ordering supplements from them, not because we put people on supplements for life. We don't do anything like that, but because, again, we're experimenters and we're always going to buy the multivitamin or whatever it is. So they're still using that person's code all these years later. And I mean, there are legitimately FDNs, $50,000 a year is coming in from full script. That is not a lie. So
Yep.
it's remarkable. I mean, that's crazy. All right. Is there an app for clients to access their labs? Not. Oh, I don't want to misspeak.
Well,
Does Biocanic have an app?
so no, so yes and no. So we don't have an app for clients to go on and access their testing. This is where you would use a client management software like Biocanic, maybe Practice Better, some of those things. We suggest that you use something like a Biocanic because it's a secure platform where you can have all your communications with your clients. They could do their intake forms, and then that's where you would upload their test results to so that they can see them when you're going over with them. So many of those client management software have an app that they can use on their phone. This is actually a great question because the labs and we at the Medical Director Program do not send your clients their test results. We send them to you as the practitioner, and there's a reason for that. You do not want your clients to get them first because they get them first and then they talk to you 3 days later. They're on Dr. Google trying to figure it out themselves and they're freaking out and they get to the call and they're like, oh my gosh, this one marker is off and Dr. Google
H.
told me that it
pylori.
was this and I'm gonna die. And I mean, I'm just a little dramatic, but that's what happens. And so we actually do not send your clients their test results. We send them to you as the practitioner. You decide when to send them to them, and we always recommend send it just before your session to review the results with them.
All right. Danielle asks, do you find that most graduates build in the cost of the clinical advisor consultations into their package pricing with clients or account for the consultations as a business expense each year? Also, can you purchase packages and bundles of clinical advisor consults each year at a discounted rate? I'll cover the first part because
Mhm.
actually I forgot the answer to the second part. I don't think so. But the first part with that is yes. And listen, we, especially if you're in the graduate group of AFDNP, it's called, highly recommend. The cost of tuition of FDN is worth the graduate group alone. I promise you, you will understand that one day if you go through this and go into the graduate group. There are a bunch of old trainings in there and new trainings. We have from years of stuff of just business alone. So we can help you with more of the structuring of your package and the pricing behind this. I actually did a free podcast on this too. You can check it out on YouTube, Health Detective Podcast by FDN. We talked about package pricing on there. The answer, though, is yes, especially if you're starting out and you know that this is something that you're going to do every time. And every FDN has a different philosophy on this. The way I look at it is this: I'm 8 years into this. I am not the smartest person in the world. I'm reasonably intelligent, but I don't spend all my day doing just labs like some of these advisors. It is my obligation to serve my client at the highest level. I'm always going to use those clinical advisors for at least something. So, yes, I budget it in and I already know that's going to be a cost of my package. And they don't need to understand the little breakdown of every little thing like, oh, this $65 here was for the consult. You don't have to, you don't owe anyone that explanation. But yes, that is
Mhm.
something that I include. And I don't know about the packages or bundles if there is any with clinical advisors. So, what's that, Brandy?
Yeah, and I echo what you say. We encourage you to account for a couple of clinical advisor sessions just in case. We do not sell bundles of sessions. We tried it, and unfortunately, it kind of becomes the Wild West, and it's really hard for us to track what you used and haven't used. So it's at per session, you can buy them. All right, I can grab this next one if you want. Do you find the barrier of people paying for labs too great? Well, I understand the value. I worry about adding this service and no one being able to use and afford it. This is a great question. This is a question that I hear a lot, course enrollment team. I'm sure you have. I've also heard this from new FDN graduates. Are people even going to pay for it? Here's what I will tell you. So doing this since 2014, when somebody comes to you as an FDN practitioner, they've likely seen several other practitioners already, and they've already spent a lot of money, and they're at the point of they're coming to you because they actually want their questions answered. There's going to be a small number of them are going to say, I've already spent a lot of money. I can't afford the testing. And I'm honest with them and I tell them, that's not how I work. In order for me to give you the best solution and the best service possible, I need this information. Otherwise, I'm just going to be like every other practitioner that you've gone to see who's guessing based on your intake forms and your symptoms. And when you explain it to them that way, they actually understand. And I've had clients who said, I can't afford this right now, but they came back a year later because they saved up for the testing because they wanted the testing. So they understood the value, they just had to save for it. And so if they're coming to you, they've probably already seen several practitioners first. Do you have experience with that, Ev?
Oh gosh, you know I could do a whole webinar on this one, so I'll just give my highlights of this. But Sarah, I'm very passionate about this actually, because I think it's a reasonable concern, but I also don't think people understand that it is a limiting belief sometimes. I go by statistics. Okay. So here's what I mean by that. If I was charging $1 million for something, that's outrageous. There's only so many people that can afford $1 million thing. That's not what FDNs are doing. Most FDNs have their packages priced with labs anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000. That's the average. There's some that are even higher if they've been doing it for a while. So then I go and I just logically say to myself, okay, does anyone out there have $3,000 to $5,000 or $6,000, even if I didn't have that at the time? So here are the stats. In America, 15% of people who work jobs earn over $100,000 a year. 15% earn over $100,000. So how many people in America work? Tens of millions, probably 100 plus million, right? So and then how many people deal with chronic disease? Because it doesn't discriminate, it doesn't care if you're rich or poor. I do think, unfortunately, people that are living in poverty are more exposed to processed foods. I fully understand that, to be clear. But we all know someone of any level of life that has dealt with illness, obviously. And so if you got about 50% of people that are sick, so I have all these people, 100,000 plus a year, that are making this, and it does not even need to be that rate, because this is Brandy's point too. It's like, you don't know what the individual is going to do until you talk to them. There are people that make $40,000 a year that are way more disciplined with their income than I am. And they've been saving for 20 years. $3,000 ain't nothing to them. They're like, oh yeah, I have $100,000 saved because I've been very smart with investing my whole life. So I've learned never to project my own worries or limiting beliefs onto people. And that's easier said than done when you're starting out with this. I get that. As someone who's been doing this for 8 years and started out, 21-year-old kid, no doctorate, no anything like that, charging people $3,000, $4,000. I was able to do that effectively because one, the people are out there. And I find this is the number one thing they care most about. Number one thing that gets them to spend that money with you and trust you with that is you. It's kind of a combination. It's you validating what they're experiencing. They've been gaslit for years, being told that this is in their head, or this isn't something to worry about, or this is something that they can't do anything about. They've been gaslit for years. They're tired of it. You validating them is going to be very helpful. Number two, this can't be for every practitioner because not everyone has health issues. Most people that come into FDN have had health issues. But if you have this was a blessing in disguise. If you have dealt with the same health issues that that person you're talking on the phone with or virtually has, and you've gotten them better, even 90%, that person will never question the price of things because they are now talking to someone who's done it. And this is all business stuff. That's why we teach you to niche down into, health areas where you've probably dealt with this stuff. So I don't want to turn this into a webinar, Brandy, so I'll stop there. But I promise you guys, there would not be FDNs out there right now. Well, I probably can say her name, but she shares this public all the time. Jen Maleka, she got me involved in FDN. Jen Maleka's lowest package is like $3,000, $4,000. Her highest one now is above 10. Not only does Jen get people to do this, Jen Maleka has a wait list practice. She can't even take all the people that she has. So if it was one thing, if like all of our graduates were like failing or something, that's not the case. So many of these graduates not only have created amazing businesses for themselves, they're hiring other FDNs to work for them. They're creating jobs. So until the day that that's not the case, people have the money to do this. And I'm very passionate about that topic. So I'll keep moving on.
No, that's all good. So Lillian asks, thanks for the clarity on my first question. Second question is, in the scenario where a client brings us their recent labs or blood work, would we be able to help them with that, or must they do the FDN labs? Okay, there's two answers to that question. So the first one is, it depends on how old the tests are. So I have had people who say, I did GI map 6 months ago. That's old. That's 6 months ago. A lot can change in 6 months. So I would not do that. You definitely want recent. Like if it was a month ago and they came to you, I might consider it because I mean, change stuff can change in a month, but not a lot can change in a month. But if they're older than like a month or two old, I would not be using them. I'd have them redo the test because you want to see what's actually going on with them right now. The second question, the blood work. If they have blood chemistry from their doctor, yeah, absolutely. Now, we don't teach you that in the course. We have an advanced course called Advanced Blood Chemistry. That is the one course that I would say if a graduate asks me, what's the next course I should take? Blood chemistry. Because that's going to give you, for a very low price, that's going to give you what you need to do a functional interpretation of their blood work. Now, the caveat I'm going to put here is I don't want all of you to just go buy the blood chemistry course and think you can do FDN because blood chemistry leads to more questions than answers. So it's helpful. And that speaks to maybe that demographic you talked about a little bit ago about, maybe the people who don't have a lot of money at first and you have the blood chemistry course, maybe you offer one package where you do blood chemistry analysis. I do this. And it's a foot in the door. It's a little less expensive. They can bring you blood work from their doctor. You can do a functional interpretation. I will tell you, not one time have I done a blood chemistry analysis where I've said, I know exactly what your problem is. It's always, we have to dig deeper, but in the meantime, here's what you can start with. And when they spend that hour with you and you teach them what their blood work means, they're sold. They're already saving money to get the bigger package with you. So that's another little business tip.
Yes.
So hopefully that helps.
That's great stuff, actually. We don't talk about that enough because we take some things for granted, right? We're in it every day, but no, that's powerful. Jamie was next, right? I've actually been working with a functional doctor the last few months who lives in Colorado Springs. And at first she said she probably wouldn't be able to work with me in another state. But since I'm in Texas, it's okay. So maybe the law doesn't apply to us because we weren't licensed. Initially what comes to my head there is that person is operating with their actual license, which means that they're probably only in certain states. And that's why they're able to do it. Unless you have something else.
No, that's my interpretation. All blood work through FDN is dry blood work testing, correct? No. So, for the LEAP MRT food sensitivity test, that you actually have to go get a blood draw. We do have a dry blood alternative, and that's for international people and those in New York who can't do that. But when you graduate, you also have the ability to order blood chemistry testing for your client through Avexia and through some other labs. And that's again where you would go to like a Quest or a LabCorp, and they bring the requisition and they have their blood drawn. So it's not all just dry blood spot. I will take this question from Danielle because this came up at another one. With so many people being on GLP-1 agonist peptides today, do you provide an advanced training on how to work with clients who are utilizing these medications? We do not. I do have some experience with this. What I will tell you is what we teach you in the course about the importance of digestion, the importance of blood sugar balance, all the things we teach you in the course, very valuable for those people who are on these GLP-1 medications. And we don't have an official stance at FDN. This is Brandy's opinion. I've done a lot of research on them. There is a value to them. There is a population of people that can definitely utilize them and leverage them. It can be life-saving. It can be very helpful. And what we learn in FDN can help with the side effects that you hear about. So you don't need an advanced course on it. Utilize the tools and techniques we teach you in the course about how to support digestion, how to balance blood sugar, how to make sure you're eating the right amount of food. That's going to go a long way to helping people on these medications.
Can I add something about AFDNP with there? Because this is a perfect example of the health trainings that we do in AFDNP. So we have advanced courses, Danielle. Brandy's mentioned that. I've mentioned that. We have the main FDN course. But then there's these kind of trendy topics or one-off topics where maybe a few sessions just to make sure you're up to date and get some insight helps. So these are the types of things and trainings that you'll see for like a 90-minute webinar in AFDNP, which is our graduate group. We'll bring in an expert, especially if there's demand for it, which there's huge demand for this all the time, at least now. And we'll have someone come and talk about it so that now you can mix this in with the rest of your stuff. You know what you're talking about it. But yes, or do we have plans to do some 10, 20-hour training on this? No, but we do support you with these relevant topics in AFDNP because if you guys have been in this space for even more than a year or two, you know every month is something different. There's a new trend, a new supplement that's being promoted or whatever. So we do think it's important to address those, and given demand, we talk about them. So you're never going to be left ignorant either.
Absolutely.
What about genetics and organic acids, heavy metal tests on kids? So this was regarding the tests on
Yeah.
kids.
So we actually don't do genetic testing. That's not something we do in FDN and we don't talk about. It's not that we don't believe it. We've actually had several genetic companies approach us. We just haven't found the right one that makes sense because when you look at genetics, and you have genetic SNPs, you have a SNP, but that doesn't mean that the SNP is actually turned on. It's, lifestyle and environment loads that like pulls the trigger, so you may have the loaded gun, but you're only pulling the trigger if you're doing the wrong things. So they can be valuable, but it's not everything. And so a lot of people who just focus on that, they may be losing some of the stuff that's important. So it's not that we don't think genetics are important. It's just we haven't found something that makes sense that goes along with what we teach. Um, there is a company that I do like that we're vetting. No promises. I'm not saying we're bringing anytime soon, but everything's changing, as Evan said. So we don't teach about that, but you can definitely do organic acid testing on kids. You could do heavy metal testing on kids. I probably wouldn't start with heavy metal testing. That's pretty in depth. You want to get the foundations first, but yes, you can definitely do that with kids.
Danielle was just a nice comment here. I appreciate this. Thanks for addressing that, Evan. This is regarding credentials. She said, I'm a total credentials junkie and was already planning on getting my health coaching cert after FDN. Maybe not so much now, LOL. So remember, learning is great. We encourage that. Keep doing stuff. I mean, don't let it be a stunt to your business, but yes, always keep learning. That's fine. But yeah, the credentials thing, I really appreciate, even with a different paradigm that you might have right now. Thank you for receiving my message. Well, I appreciate that. Because that's something we really have to work through with a lot of people. And I'll plant a seed for everyone here. Not one person on this webinar right now could tell me all of the letters behind their family doctor's name. And I'm sure obviously it's MD, but there's going to be other things that they've done because they all have, and not one person could say all of those letters. When you understand why you went to that person through some point of your life or still go to that person, and yet you don't know what letters are behind their name, that is when you start to understand what makes people buy things and why they do certain things. So, little fun thing to think about with business. Elisa said, thank you, Brandy. Makes sense. Is there some guidance and support in the program for those who need to switch hats?
Not specifically in the program, but I mean, we talk a lot about it in AFDNP. That's our postgraduate community. I know it's talked about in the trainee group as well. So we've got a lot of people in that scenario. So you're not going to feel lost if that's your situation.
Okay. Thank you for making the clarification about FDN not being just about a nutritional plan. Like, obviously nutrition is important, but I would say we look at nutrition almost as a high level overview, right? Our ancestors, who most of us support as, I mean, they didn't have modern conveniences, but if you look at like Weston A. Price stuff, they look very robust, very healthy. Their teeth were in order in a way that we don't see in today's world. So we know they were doing something right. So they didn't know the micronutrients in all their food. In a sense, they didn't even track macros, although I do think that's a beneficial one that we've learned how to do in today's world for a variety of reasons. But they did focus on quality. They did focus on food types. And so that's something that we help with. But yeah, in terms of like getting into the nuance of micros, we don't even necessarily do that. Because to live at the healthiest, you don't have to. If you're getting the right foods and supplementing when necessary, you're covering your micros naturally. The body's an amazing thing. Okay. Do you know how much these platforms cost? I'm sorry, Nicole. I think this was referring to like biocanics and stuff. And can you just specify? I can get to your question faster, Nicole.
I think that's what it is. I think Biocanic still $35 for FDNs. Yeah. I mean, that's the best price you're going to get. And that's a platform made for FDNs by a husband of an FDN. That's probably the best one you're going to get. The other ones are in the range of 80 to $100.
Bianca asked, what is the graduate group? And this was actually at a time frame that I've already explained some of it. So I'll give the rundown. AFDNP, the Association of FDN Professionals. What that is our place, like our Think Hub, our think tank, where you can come in as a graduate. It is $33 a month. You do not have to be an AFDNP to be an FDN. It's something that you voluntarily choose to be a part of. But again, the cost of tuition is worth the cost of AFDNP. What we do there, though, is, as the name implies, provide that higher level professional support. There are, 3 to 4 webinars now a week, or meetings a week for different topics, business, advanced health trainings. I actually host some stuff once a week with Lucy, the executive director there. Reed, the founder of FDN, still to this day, every Friday. And he's been doing stuff similar to this since I graduated 8 years ago, and since Brandy graduated even longer than me. He gets on with his trainees first on Friday calls, and then right after
Mhm.
that, he hops to the graduate group. So you actually get direct access to the founder still at this place, and he will answer your questions if you show up there. In addition to other people that we have helping out, clinical advisors and stuff like that. So that graduate group, to me, the reason that we put the word professionals in that is because it is for the professional. It's not for the hobbyist, and you can go through FDN as a hobbyist, but that group is for the people that said, I'm doing this course. I want to do this as work. I'm tired of working somewhere else that I don't feel the same passion about. This is the stuff I'm studying on weekends. I'm listening to podcasts in the car. I want this to be my career and the thing that I do for the rest of my life. That is what we do in that group. And I'm sure I probably missed something. Is there any other highlights of AFDNP you want to hit on?
No, I think you covered it really
Okay.
good.
There's a lot of other stuff too. It's cool.
There's a Q&A that came in. I think this is
Oh,
good to
thanks.
address now, and then we'll jump over to Danielle's question about CGM.
Mhm.
So it says if we don't actually label them with a diagnosis when we review their blood work with them, nor saying yes if asked if they're diabetic based on blood work, for example, even if all markers point to that, are there any states that someone who attains FDN lives in that they had to exercise certain precautions around clinical correlating, reviewing labs and use of MDP, or providing food suggestions? Heard red states have the most restrictions around this. Okay, this is a good question. So let's do the diabetes example. Let's say you get blood work and they've got super high HbA1c, their fasting blood sugar is really high, and you're thinking, this person is diabetic. You cannot make that diagnosis. This is where you have to refer out and you say to them, and I haven't had this issue, but I've had it with women because I've seen thyroid markers, is there's some things on your blood work that point towards, I definitely think you should chat with your doctor about looking at your blood glucose. It looks to me like something's pretty high. I really encourage you to go talk to them. You may benefit from some support from them and potentially maybe medication. I don't know. But I am here to support you with the lifestyle things that can support you in that area. So with blood sugar, this is where you'll be educating them around things that can support their blood sugar: exercise, sleep, lowering stress, talking about like the different combinations of foods to kind of make sure their blood sugar is balanced. But you're not actually making the diagnosis. Now, I would say something similar with the thyroid. There's some markers on here that's indicating your thyroid's struggling a little bit. I really encourage you to go talk to your doctor because you may benefit from some thyroid support with them, but I can support you with lifestyle and nutrition. Um, and kind of be like a team. We can be as a team to support you. That's how you approach it. You can't make the diagnosis. More often than not, if you tell them that they trust you, they're going to go to their doctor. Is their doctor going to do exactly what you think they're going to do? Sometimes not. I've had that happen. You just continue to support them. Red states. A lot of people get freaked out about this. I live in a red state. This has to do with insurance. So we do not cover anything by insurance. Our services are not covered by insurance. We do not do ACD-10 codes, so it does not apply to us. It also has to do with nutrition. If you live in a state where it's a red state around nutrition, you can't do prescriptive diets or prescriptive nutrition language. We don't do that anyways. We don't do diet plans. We don't do meal planning. We don't give them a prescription for diet. But if you want to stay really safe in that state, you can say, let's take my thyroid client, for instance. I've had clients in the past who have gone on an anti-inflammatory diet. I think it might help you. Here's some resources that you can look at. Send them some resources from the web. Send them a book that they can read. They trust you. They're going to go look at it. If they choose to do it, that's on them. You didn't prescribe it. You just said it may benefit you, and here's some resources. That's how you handle that question. Hopefully that makes sense.
Hi, Danielle asks, is FDN aligned with any particular CGM company? She's very interested in it, thinks that they're amazing tools for clients. Yes, we love Thea Health. Boris specifically has been a great partner with us, super nice guy. I've had him on the podcast. I believe he's been in not only AFDNP, did he do an HSU for us?
He did. Yep.
Yeah, so he's done bottom line, you don't need to know all those acronyms. He's done a lot of stuff for us. So once you graduate, you could easily get access to these additional trainings. In fact, you could even just go to the podcast and learn more about it for free. But yes, we do have a deal with them, so we can get it a little bit cheaper for you. And what's nice about us having so many graduates that use these companies is, it's great to have these people tested. There was one little thing that came up in October. People were worried about a price increase, but we have so much power because of our community. He's like, you know what? No, that's right. We'll change this and make sure FDNs still get the same price. So Danielle, not only are we aligned, if you will, with a particular CGM, but it's kind of nice to have a healthy amount of leverage with these companies as well. Okay. Oh,
I was trying to
Jennifer,
find where we
Jennifer,
were.
Jennifer. Is there a way to start out cheaper with fewer tests to help a client see that their money is being spent in a worthwhile way before they commit to a full package? Jennifer, I hope you still love me after this. I'm sure you don't actually love me. You only know me on a webinar. But I'm going to challenge this. The idea that you're even saying already in your head that the person needs to start out cheaper, you don't even know who you're talking about yet, right? That implies that the hypothetical person in the ether right now, is not willing and able to afford what you would need to charge as an FDN practitioner to be able to help them at the highest level. So I'm just going to say, watch out for the belief side of it. Now, again, also going off statistics and being practical, are there some people that objectively can afford less than others? Yes, you'd be absolutely correct in thinking that. We do not promote that really at all. FDN also does not own the practitioner. So can you do a variation of FDN as long as it's still within scope and you're not breaking walls, of course? Can you do a variation of FDN that has a few labs afterwards? You could. And I think, unfortunately, you will end up in this limbo that many FDNs in the beginning end up with. And I did this. I'm speaking from experience. I charged the guy for only one lab and my consultations. And you know what happened? It didn't work. I didn't get him better. And I'm lucky still to this day that he actually does consider me a friend and is willing to like some of my stuff on Facebook, because I let him down. So I charged him less so that I could do what I thought was right. And Brandy, I've told you this story before. You know what he said on our last consult? He said, Ev, I'm not like mad at you, but I wish you would have just told me about the other stuff from the beginning. I would have been happy to pay it. And so I hope you guys know that when I'm talking about projecting limiting beliefs, I'm almost projecting my own experience on you. So I'll be fair there, because I literally sold a guy on less than he was able to afford and wanted, because I thought I knew what he wanted and what he would think. And I was wrong. So I speak from personal experience with it. So yes, you can start on less. We don't recommend that. That's not doing FDN then, because that's not what we taught you in the course. Will you see other FDNs doing it? You will, but I always use the Picasso quote and sound like a cheese ball every webinar. Picasso said, you got to learn the rules. I don't even know the quote. I'm paraphrasing it. You got to learn the rules like a master so you can break them like an artist. So my point is, my first client, would I ever recommend, consider, or tell someone to do less than the foundational labs? No, you better have a lot of clients under your belt before you start negotiating with yourself and saying, is there a time and place for it? That is
I had the
someone who
exact
wants to
same
help you.
experience. Yeah, I had the exact same experience with my first one. I just ran a stress and hormones profile. I did not help her. I'm sorry to that client that didn't help you because I didn't have all the information. And the same goes for clients who come to you who tell you what test they want you to run. We don't play that game. If they knew what to run, they would have fixed themselves. They wouldn't be with you. You are the expert. So you got to stick to your morals. But we talked a little bit earlier about blood chemistry. That's the only exception that I would say for them to dip the toe, is the blood chemistry as a little starter. So we talked a little bit that before. And Jennifer had asked after that what the cost of the blood chemistry course is. $397. Like I said, very reasonable.
Bill has another one about blood chem.
Yeah, when you say blood chemistry, do you send them to a conventional lab and then interpret the results? I know a functional medicine practitioner who uses conventional labs, and she sends them to LabCorp and then works with the client for that. Yeah, that's how it works. So Avexia, I think, is LabCorp, might be Quest. There's another lab we work with, DHA Labs. I think they're LabCorp. So they send you the test results that come in from LabCorp or Quest, and then you interpret them and review them with your client. So that's how it works. Yep. We have
All right.
Julie, we saw your question and we will answer it about Black Friday. We will definitely answer it. We're just getting through some of these ones. So we do have one in the Q&A about
I don't know if this is a different Julie. I love this. Can we say this comment here, because people are going to watch this on recording? I thank you for saying this, Julie. Addressing the credential concerns. I am a Harvard Medical School trained health coach. I mean, it can't get sexier than that as a title, right? And I feel it was a total waste of time and money. That's my personal opinion. And I thank you for saying that, because I'm sure there's some that went through it and loved it. But like, I mean, if Harvard can't help from the credential side, there's so much more to the business side than that. Even if you got 3 clients a year from your credentials, that's not enough to run a full-time business. So thank you for your transparency with that, Julie.
Yeah. So there's a red state question that came in the Q&A. So in those red states, if they ask you for foods they would benefit from with their autoimmune condition, for example, would it be crossing the line for an FDN to answer their question? As an example, foods and meals was making clear, not telling you you must eat this for a condition. No list of example breakfasts. Yeah, so you would basically, so I would say, it may benefit you for a short period of time to do something like autoimmune paleo protocol. In that protocol, they would avoid this, and this. Here's some resources. Here's a great book. There's a lot of resources you can send them and great books on, give them examples of meal plans. Or the other way you could do this is you could say, if you're struggling to figure out what you can eat, you can go on something like Real Plans and pay a subscription, type in, I want autoimmune paleo protocol. Real Plans will give them the meal plan in the shopping list. You didn't do it. Real Plans did it. You can absolutely do that. So hopefully that's helpful. And I lost track of where we were.
That's okay. Pamela just said thanks. And then here's a long one for you. Danielle, regardless of what direction anyone, just making sure, Danielle, you don't want to set me up here. Regardless of what direction anyone politically swings, does FDN team feel like the functional medicine, functional nutrition space is going to explode in the next 4 years? Okay. I've shared this on a podcast publicly. It's not a secret. And let's, we don't mind saying certain stuff here, Danielle, and Reed certainly says certain stuff. A year ago, everyone in this space loved RFK, right? So let's separate. I got my qualms. It doesn't matter. A year ago, everyone loved him in this space, at least. He's done a lot of great things for this space. So from a total business perspective and what I'm betting my personal dollars on, do I think it's going to blow up? Yes, I actually think the game's already done in a sense. And what I mean by done is I think the wheel is starting to spin and there is no stopping it now, no matter what happens. I'm at my parents' house right now visiting for Thanksgiving. I told my wife, Maddie, that she's in FDN as well. Brandy, I walked downstairs for 5 dang minutes to get lunch and the TV's on in the background. All I hear, this is on news. They're talking about fluoride being removed from the water. And of course, they spin their twist on it. That's not, I'm not going to get into that. But the fact that that is even being shared on national television, do you know what that means? People are going on this afterwards and they're searching and they're typing in. So all of these people right now, Danielle, all the awakenings that we've all had on this webinar to even lead us to something like this. I know you guys have had an aha moment that led you to functional medicine. We all have. That's what millions of people are experiencing right now. So again, apolitically, objectively, would I bet my money on this? Yeah, I am. I actually am betting my money on it, quite literally. So I think it is an amazing time to be an FDN practitioner, a health coach, anyone in the space, even if you're not an FDN. That's my opinion. Brandy,
And I think we all saw that even before this, again,
yes,
apolitically. True. I mean, we were seeing the tides turning where people were starting to understand the importance of taking care of their health and that conventional wisdom wasn't always working for them. Like I can't remember the statistic, but I know somebody did a talk when we were in San Diego that had the statistic. I mean, this industry is set to explode regardless of what happened. This was before they even knew the results of the election. So this is apolitical, but it was ready to explode because so many people are understanding the importance of taking care of their health. And there are so many people in this world, and there's not enough FDNs. There's not enough functional medicine doctors. There's not enough of us out there to support all the people that are going to need our help. So we're definitely in the right space right now.
If you guys are nerds, I'm sure none of you guys on here are nerds. Look up like innovation and early adopters, and there's like this whole theory about it for technology. And I think we're about to get into the stage where we end up with basic. You guys will understand this when you read it. It's a bell curve. We're about to enter the 68% chunk where now the majority of the population picks up this stuff and does this. It is such a cool time. And so, I mean, Jamie's in there saying 20 years they've been out there teaching people stuff. I'm in FDN for 8 years. I've been in the space for 11. And, you started talking about this crap 11 years ago. You're just insane. I can't even imagine 20, 30, 40 years ago. And then guess what? All of a sudden, the local grocery store, now there's an organic aisle. All of a sudden, you hear about it on TV. All of a sudden, big podcast hosts are talking about it and it comes up on the news. It's changing, man. People are sick, literally, but they're also kind of figuratively sick and tired of feeling this way. So, industry can only lie and hide this for so long. When 48% of people are walking around in a country with 340 million people with chronic disease, we're not idiots. And yeah, I hope you guys are ready for this, because what an amazing time to be a part of history and like really help this. So cool. All right, Julie, I think has one more question.
Let's see. If the FDN program is year-long, can we utilize the tools you offer before completing the course if we're already a health coach? You cannot use the testing, but you can utilize what we teach you about the RESS. That's our dress for health success. And that's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. So everything you're learning in the course from that perspective, yes, but you can't use the testing until you graduate. And the big question that's been asked several times, Evan, is there going to be a Black Friday sale? Should we talk about it?
If you'd like to. I mean, you're the COO. I'm the humble podcast. Well, humble sometimes. I'm a podcast host. So I will say, folks, it'd be the first year we did into a Black Friday sale if there wasn't one. So I'll start with that. I don't know what you want to add to that, if anything.
I would say if you're waiting to see if there's a sale, keep your eye open to our Instagram and all of our socials and your inbox for Friday morning. There will be an announcement. Yes, we're having a sale. We're going to tell you what it is. No, but it's a good deal. So keep your eyes open to our socials and your inboxes, and you will find out what it is. And then somebody had asked about red state, green state, yellow state. I did put a link there in the chat for you guys to just go there. You can go and pick your state, and it can give you information about any potential bills in your state and some of the laws there. So that's a really good resource. I think we did it. I think.
Well, thank you guys so much. We have some Instagram lives coming up Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So please follow us there at FDN Training. Replays for this can be found on YouTube. Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you. You're welcome. Definitely can be found on YouTube. Brenda, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I don't know if you have the link for YouTube offhand, but we'll get you guys that below. You can watch all the replays there. Maybe, you're checking out FDN right now, but it's not the time. That's okay. Connect with us on YouTube. We do 3 to 4 lives a week, podcasts, webinars, whatever. It's free. It's free. Come check us out. Hang out with us. We'd love for you to be a part of that, even if it's not the time for you at FDN. If it is the time, though, man, oh, good Lord, get in. Because one, you got hypothetical Black Friday thing coming up. And then with this revolution that we're seeing, an apolitical revolution, I mean, man, let's go. Like, you got to get in. So, Brandy,
we have one last question and I can answer super quick. Other than New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, address for receiving kits, is there anything else we need to be careful with when talking to somebody on a call? If they live overseas, you just need to figure out where they are and just let them know, yes, we can get testing to you. There may be an extra cost for shipping. There's no way for you to know that. That's where you could say, I can get back to you, and you'd reach out to our amazing Deb in the medical director program, and she can help you out with that. So that's the only thing to be aware of. So we don't talk to them differently based on where they're physically located. No, we don't. It's pretty much the same.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, I don't think we have another show before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you who are in the US. Enjoy your week, and look for our big announcement in your inbox. It's going to be a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.